Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Biz Bitch podcast. I am so excited you are here, friends. Honestly, it feels like it's been forever since it's just been me, myself, and I, and you. And sometimes these are some of my favorite moments. But you might notice if you are watching on YouTube that I'm in a little bit of a different place than I normally am. And I want to be honest with you. Some days I have so many ideas of what I want to podcast about, but my studio gets set up once a month. And to go set it all up just to do a podcast with you feels like a lot. And I get in my own way and I don't do it. Or I put it on a list of to-do list things and, my business things get really busy and I don't do it. So today I decided to stop using that as an excuse and just record from my computer. But I also know that's not an excuse to not get content out. I tell my clients this all the time. I tell all my entrepreneur friends this all the time. Like, stop using excuses. Done is better than perfect. And sometimes we just got to do the damn thing. So today I am doing the damn thing with you. All right. Before I fully jump into today's episode, which is a solo episode with just me about business identity and the things I think no one talks about and the things that we go through as entrepreneurs and something I've personally been going through, I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update of what's been going on in my life. So since the last time we've done a solo episode, so many fun things have happened. Even though what I go and talk about on this episode feels like my life is falling apart, I promise you there is good and bad in everything. One of them is we had a summer yacht party here in San Diego. So I had this dream a few years ago of putting a bunch of women on a yacht and female founders because, let's be honest, guys do it often, or I hate to say it, when I was younger, I went on lots of yachts with creepy old men or creepy men just because I wanted to go on a boat. Because from what I know, I'd say the owners of yachts from women to men is lower, and we got to shift that. But I had this dream of being able to go on a yacht and just creating a really safe space where women could just be on a boat, live out their dreams, and all be entrepreneurs and really just celebrate what they have achieved. And we did it, and it was so much fun. If you want to see what that looks like, you can go to my Instagram, and there is a ton of video footage over it. And honestly, it was a day I'll forever remember, and I want to do it again. And I did it with 2 other community members here in San Diego. And I'm like, all right, how do I do this in other cities, to be honest? Because it was so much fun, friends. And I think every female founder should be able to celebrate themselves with a little bit of a summer yacht day. All right, I do want to shift into today's episode, and I want this to come from a place of my heart of something I'm going through, in a place where I want to be really vulnerable with you in hopes that it can help you, and in hopes that you could, if you're feeling a similar way, but also just for me to kind of talk through what I've been going through. And something I'm really excited about because I feel like I am on the other side of it, but I don't think it's fair as someone who is promising to share the insides and outs of her business with her community and always urges them to do the same thing, to not do that with you as well. I feel like sometimes, as someone who has a community and speaking on stages, I feel like a sense that I also need to have it all together all the time. But I can't hide behind that, and I can't pretend like I have it all together because I definitely don't. And this year, I've definitely been going through something that I'm calling my business identity crisis, I guess you could say. And it's the identity shift that I feel like I've been going through to get to where I need to go next in my next phase of business, and kind of this shedding of playing small and this shedding of feeling like I had to do something because I said I was, or just because I'm good at it. And the shedding of the business that got me here isn't always the business that's going to get me where I'm going, and learning to let go of it and let go of the identity I had around it, to be honest. Okay, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Since January, I have not been feeling connected to how I was currently running my businesses and what my businesses were. It's a friendly reminder, if you're a new listener here, I had an agency where I did all things operations. One would call it a COO, others would call it an OBM, where we were really hands-on with doing build outs for clients, helping them run their back end of their business, not just strategy, but the actual plugged in doing the doing as well. So it's a done for you business model. In addition to that, I was running Biz Bitch, which is a community that is based around community and connection networking. And we meet once a week, which is what has made this so special. From the outside, I would say that people thought I had it all together, and people saw my wins and my successes. I sold out International Women's Day, where we have 350 women there. My membership is thriving and growing. We're not anywhere near what I want it to be, but we are definitely growing. I've been nominated for awards. I've had a podcast and incredible guests, and, things are growing and moving. I have a team that supports me. But behind the scenes, my business didn't look as successful. And my bank account actually was more fulfilled then when I had both of them than it is now because of this huge changeover I'm going through, which I will get to in a second. But my nervous system, like me, was completely in shock. And it wasn't operating at the space it wanted to anymore. It didn't, my cup didn't feel filled in the way it did. I felt like I couldn't complete something too good. It's almost like the Cheesecake Factory. When you look at a menu and it's got so many options on it, right? And you're like, how can a restaurant be this good at making all of this food so good? How can they do all this compared to like a niched down restaurant that has like select items that they are just really good at because they pour themselves into and they can see it as a holistic view and are giving you a full experience versus a menu of options that have too many options. I was kind of feeling like the Cheesecake Factory, where it's like I had so much going on. And while my clients are happy and members were happy, I just feel like I wasn't able to complete even like a thought or anything to completion the way I wanted to, or even activate on ideas or things that I fully wanted to activate on because there was too much. I was being pulled in so many different directions at so many times. And to be honest, I knew I wasn't having a business problem. I knew, honestly, my businesses were successful. My ideas were successful. I was good at what I was doing. It felt like more like I was having like an identity problem over a business problem. So let me kind of take you back to where I really started to notice this was happening. So I'd say in January, I was like anyone coming back from the holidays and trying to like dig my teeth back into my business and kind of waking up from that holiday like snooziness feeling. But it just like felt like I just couldn't. And then I kept hearing everything about the year of the snake and the shedding. And I was like, perfect. Has to be something like that. That has to be what's going on with me. And so I was leaning into that in the year of the horse. And I was like, perfect. I'm going to feel better. But it just kept not. Month after month after month, something just kept feeling not right. And I'll give you a few examples of how that felt like it was happening to me. Client contracts were closing in terms of my agency world, and I wasn't feeling called to try and re-engage with them or keep them on or move them into a different offer or a different area of my business. I was working with clients. I said yes to clients that truly did not feel aligned to what I was trying to build and what I was wanting to do. Like, yes, they were community focused, but like they had a lot of other things that they were just weren't feeling aligned. They were paying less coverage, yet expected me to be available to them at all times. And I just was feeling like something wasn't aligned. I had my biggest year yet last year. So the numbers felt there. And this January, February, things were slowing down. And I was like, what is happening here? Why? The leads even were slowing down in terms of that side of the business and my agency side of the business. And I noticed I wasn't, which weirdly, like worried or scared or like felt like anything was wrong. Like there was nothing inside of me that was like, go look at this, go look at your KPIs, what's happening, go make some phone calls. It was just like I was in this sense of overwhelm and this sense of just like a freezing point. And I would just like kind of stare at my computer and walls and not want to do it. I'd get so invested in projects that had nothing to do with that agency, and everything that happened to do with Biz Bitch, I would get so much more excited about. And I'd like want to throw myself into that. Or there's two clients specifically that had businesses that really, really I enjoyed. And they were clients that were based around building community and membership around women specifically. And I just felt myself enjoying those conversations, enjoying those parts, but not even really loving the back end part of it, just the ideas and what was possible in those businesses. And so there came this moment, and I talked about it on a recent episode or an episode that's coming out, where I went to a breath work. I felt like disconnected from my mind to my body. And I went to this breath work, and it was the first time I had felt in a while. And then I just started journaling more and more and just feeling like, what's happening? Why is this not feeling aligned to me anymore? It wasn't about the money, and it wasn't about not loving all my clients and what I was doing, because I was still good at it. It just was about like not fully feeling like that was me of where I wanted to be right now. Even in terms of like how I showed up or the way I wanted to do a full rebrand, I just felt like everything I had online just wasn't matching where my brain was at. I felt like it was old, outdated, even in terms of the way I've been looking and feeling, because I've been working out and like shifting into really trying to take care of myself. Like the old photos, although they are beautiful branded photos, they didn't look like me. I was going to other events and communities, and while I was loving it, the conversations weren't the level of conversation I was hoping to have and what I was looking to get. from women. And I just was like, I think I'm ready to step and trust myself in this next phase of my business of what I really want to do. But like, what the hell do I even really want to do, to be honest? I didn't have that answer. I didn't know what that looked like. And I tried like almost a small pivot at some point earlier in the year of saying I was only going to do like done for you systems for community builders. And while I really enjoyed that part, it still didn't feel like I'd hit the nail on the head on what I was looking for. And every time I get pulled into BizBitch and get really excited about a BizBitch project or something new and all the things I wanted to create for it, it was like I was getting pulled away by clients or things breaking or just my team not being fully aligned on where I needed them to be. And like I did trainings and SOPs, but it's really hard to scale an operations agency from what I've found. Or maybe I just wasn't passionate about it because I'm sure there's people out there who have scaled those kinds of businesses. But it was really hard for me to scale it because everyone's businesses and the way they work, even if they were on a platform, one or two platforms I had, there were still so many other platforms and things that they didn't have to where it's like we had to relearn and retrain a team on every single client. It was really hard to rinse and repeat it. I almost got to a point where I was like, I felt like not good at anything. Like I just was like, I can't seem to like complete my thoughts or get these things done that I want to get done. And I can't pour into one of my businesses the way I want to. And the thing that actually probably hit me the most is even what I was being recognized for wasn't aligning anymore. Came to this point where I started going to different networking events. And it's almost like people didn't even want to know me for the operations and the agency side of what I was doing. They only want to know me as BizBitch, which is a really good problem to have. And it is a really great branding place that I've put myself in. And I feel so honored that people will walk up to me and be like, you're that bitch, you're that BizBitch. Like I honestly, the fact that I've created something like that for myself and a brand, I'm obsessed with. But I was like, no one comes to me or even thinks of me as the operations person anymore. And I'm like, am I letting go of that identity? Does no one, just because I'm good at it and I have been doing it since day one and it's what got me to this point, I don't feel like it aligns with me anymore. And it's almost like the world doesn't align that with me anymore either. They know me as BizBitch. They know me as the person who throws really successful events, sold out events, right? They knows me as the connector, this women's community, these women in my world who are wildly obsessed with what we're building. And they weren't really looking at me to build things out anymore. If anything, they were asking me ideas on strategy and how do you do it? And how do you get people to show up? And how have you done this with your events? And this is so special. When I look at my DMs and my testimonials, it was all coming from that. It wasn't coming from my agency anymore. And that's kind of where it first hit me. And I was like, I was at a networking event and someone was like, oh, this is Jazmin. She's BizBitch. She does community, all these things. And in my head, I was like, she doesn't even know the other part of my business and what else I do. And who else doesn't know that about me? Maybe I'm not even that person anymore. I think sometimes visibility and being on platforms can be a really great disguise for success and how well businesses are operating. And not to say that there's lots of businesses out there that are healthy on the inside and out, but I think there's a lot out there that are also healthy on the outside, but maybe feeling a little bit lost on the inside. And I'll be honest, I've started listening to a lot of podcasts from other community leaders like myself who share a really similar feeling of this outside community feeling like it's all put together, but something inside wasn't feeling connected anymore, or something needed to shift to where we need to hold the space for our communities differently in how we show up. Because running a community is unlike any other kind of business model I have ever been a part of, have I ever consulted in, or even talked to other peers who have communities and other things or memberships. There's something more that comes from it in terms of a feeling of a two-way interaction of what I'm creating and the way people are receiving it. And look, on the outside, there was success, right? We had sold out yacht experiences. Our retreat was sold out. My podcast has been growing. I've been asked to do speaking opportunities. I've got nominated for award. My community, the membership has tripled in size because of some of the things I've been able to do lately. And, I can say that I can go to different events in different places and women will walk up to me and say, I've been to your event. It's changed my life. Oh, I've heard so much about you. And, my Instagram's growing. My email list has tripled in size, all of those things. However, if you asked whether both my businesses were successful at that same time and if they were sustainable, I'd say absolutely not. Absolutely not. There was so many broken or unfinished parts that I just couldn't seem to get to. And I think that is where my nervous system kind of just started to shut down and go, what are we doing here? What is the whole point of what we're doing here? It's almost like it was like a proud moment to be a business owner of two businesses. It was like, oh yeah, I have an agency and I have the Biz Bitch community. And it was just like, people are like, oh, how are you doing it all? At one point, I'd say there was a good year where I was doing it all and I was doing it really well. There was this point where I actually was leading connection questions for my own community. And one of the questions was, what is the legacy you're leaving behind? And what are you trying to build for? And every time I closed my eyes and every time I do, manifestation or tapping, and every time I go to write down goals, it was always around Biz Bitch goals. Always wanting to grow this to be a global brand, International Women's Day event going on the road, the Biz Bitch podcast, right? Wanting, to be able to touch over 1 million women's lives through Biz Bitch. It was never ever something that automatically came to my mind when I went to set a goal for my agency. It's almost like I'd get all the Biz Bitch goals, get really excited, and then I'd be like, all right, well, now I have to set some goals for this other company because like it needs goals too, and I need to grow it as well because it's what I'm good at, and I have this agency, and it's how I make money. And all of these things. But after sitting with that for so many times, I was like, I'm not trying to build this agency for anything beyond it just making money. I don't have plans to sell it one day. I don't have plans to grow it one day. I don't have plans to keep it forever and have this whole team working for me. None of that ever really came to mind when I was running it. It was just, I'm really good at it. It's kind of was the natural progression from my VA business, which is how I started the operations agency, into like that next level. But when I sat down to do my goals and think about future me and, the next version and even just other businesses, they always tied back to Biz Bitch. It was either write the book, right? And write the book about community and how it can change your business and change yourself. It was do the yacht. It was take a group on yearly annual immersions and summits. It was build a podcast around it, right? Do the YouTube channel. And it was always back to the women I was supporting in Biz Bitch. And what I did realize is I had all these dreams with Biz Bitch and all these dreams of things I wanted to do with it, but I never had the time. And it would always get pushed and always get pushed on my to-do list. I could never get the thing done that I wanted to get done. I could never finish it. It would sit on this to-do list for me and my team because we were just managing so many other pieces. And I wasn't feeling fulfilled. Sure, I was successful, but I wasn't fulfilled. And I think we should talk about the two differences. I was successful in the way of someone looking of like, my bank account was filled. I had a client roster of people wanted to work with me. I was good at my job. People were giving me, testimonials where they're happy. They were still referring me over, but I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't attached to it. I didn't wake up in the morning thrilled and excited about it. I was even just like not loving even building out the SOPs for my team to take over for me. There was just parts of it that I just felt like weren't aligned anymore. I was so busy, ridiculously busy. And busy versus intentional are also two different things. I don't want to be the founder that says I'm so busy. I don't like that word. I think there's nothing impressive about it. There's nothing that makes me sound more successful because I am so busy. If I could be making shit tons of money and only working 1 hour a week, that is the business I want to run. That is what I want to do. I don't want to just be busy to say I'm busy. I felt like I was getting trapped back in my like corporate days of just being busy. But I felt like I was getting validated because I had both businesses and that's how people knew me. I felt validated because, those who had worked with me would recommend me to others. But it almost was even hard in my own community to position myself as the done for you operations persons versus the community host versus another member who kind of did something similar. Because when we'd go around and we'd start talking and connecting, everyone just saw me as the host of Biz Bitch. It felt weird to pitch in the idea of me being these operations person at the same time. And I almost felt weird taking business from my community members because I wanted them to come to the space and get clients. And so if I knew I was up against someone who did something similar, I'd almost quiet myself a little bit. And it could have just been a sign of my own body starting to say, you know what, there's other things for you. You have such a bigger mission in life of what you're trying to do. And you don't need this client and you don't need to fight this. Like, let her have it right now. So I started surrounding myself and going to spaces of entrepreneurs at those next levels and thinking about what I want to do one day. And the thing is, I want to have a business that I sell one day. I'd love to play in the startup world and build a business where I get investors one day, which I know sounds absolutely crazy. I want to have a product one day. And when I started surrounding myself in the spaces of those kinds of founders, I realized what parts of my business was working and what parts I was doing that were aligning me for that life. But I was realizing that a lot of it was not aligning me for that world anymore and what I was actually wanting to build. And let me say this, there is nothing wrong with wanting to be just a small business owner who is just operating day to day to pay your bills and live a good life. There's nothing wrong with that. I think we need all types of entrepreneurs and small businesses, and it's really important. However, I've always felt in my heart that I am here to do something so much bigger. And I want to be a global international brand. And I want to be on many stages and in many places. And I want BizBitch to go global and whatever else I create to be part of that story. And I know that in my heart. And it even took me listening to Oprah was speaking at Cannes Festival to say, like, it's either you know it or you don't. And I know it. I know it to the tips of my little toes that there's something in there that I'm going to be bigger than I can even imagine. And what I was working on and building at that time wasn't what it was, and it didn't feel right. But it's really fucking scary to let go of the thing that brings you the most revenue in your business and literally how you pay bills. It's actually insane to just let it go. So here was what was working in my business. I had recently started going towards working with only people who had community or memberships in mind or community focused. And those conversations and those clients were working really well, and I was loving it. I had recently kind of restructured my team and actually pulled some of my virtual assistant hours with one of my teams down a little bit because I just realized that I didn't need them in the capacity that I was moving towards. I was really starting to lean into AI a lot more than I even realized, in realizing I'm good at it because I actually have a background in operations and systems and how to prompt, and I understand this world. So it comes really easy to me on how to use AI in my business and how to use it as something that complements my business. There also is no way to say and deny that in the operations world of business, AI is is challenging those roles with the way things connect and the way what you can get done is absolutely insane. And I know that. However, I just still know that there's so many people that just don't even know the language they're looking for to get it to do the thing. I think we're far away from that. And I still think there's going to be support that needs to happen in those two worlds. What was working was BizBitch was working. My members were doubling, increasing. I had gone recently from an open membership to a closed membership, which I have a podcast coming soon about what that means and what that does for our community, because I think it's a really important piece in how I've created something so special. My events were getting sold out. My podcast was growing, right? I was having lots of conversations about community building and partnerships and sponsorships and throwing events and things that I realized I've been doing my whole entire life is living in this space. But for some reason, that's like my corporate identity and this is my entrepreneur identity. And I don't often put the two together because I wanted to help small businesses so bad. I was really undercharging for some of the work that I was doing to the capacity that I was doing it. And that ended up hurting me because a lot of my clients' scopes were going way over because they just needed more from me and I felt bad leaving them there. I was realizing no matter how deep I got in discovery with a client to know what they needed, that until I got into their business, there was no way in hell I would know exactly what they needed and how they needed support from me. It was like the scope of work was always increasing as much as I asked a million questions. What wasn't working was I'd go to like sit down and do my goals for the year. I'd have to write the goals for BizBitch and then the goals for my agency. And then it was like, all right, well, I need my new mission statement. So let me look at my mission statement, refresh it here, and then let me look at this mission statement. And it felt like everything I had to do times two. And it just always felt so overwhelming. My vision board for one business, my vision board for the second business, right? And yes, there was a lot of alignment and clients that like overlapped a little bit, but in reality, they actually were very separate clients that I had on both sides. Yes, they were women and they were entrepreneurs, but there was very different specifics on each side of them. So it's like I had to nail those down every time. The operating systems that I was using for both clients, how I was doing my email newsletters and like the messaging. It was like the community messaging and the systems messaging. Even like as I started this podcast, I was like, how am I even going to bring that into the podcasting world? But like, it feels like a miss if we don't talk about it on this podcast in terms of being an operations agency. And I think that is really the beginning of the year is where I started to get really overwhelmed and I would avoid it. I would avoid it. I wouldn't sit down and I didn't want to do my goals because it felt like too much. I didn't want to do my vision board because it felt like too much and I couldn't get clear on what I wanted. And it just was like always double the work for everything I had to do. And even to the point where I was ready for some new brand photos to step into this newer identity. And I was still trying to like hold on to that string a little bit that I was going to keep this business around. And I was like, well, shoot, now I got to split my time. How am I going to look for these photos versus how am I going to look for these photos? And what brand colors are we going to use here? And is it time to change fonts? I wonder who in my world feels overwhelmed or confused on what I do as well. But I almost got to a point where I was like pretending myself that it was all working. Like I thought it was fine because I was making money and I was paying all my bills and everything felt like it was fine. And I was able to, go spend the money that I wanted to spend, but I just felt empty inside. It's almost like I was afraid to admit to myself that I was failing doing both of these things and that I couldn't run both these things. And I was afraid to admit to the people who follow me and the people in my own world and even in my own mastermind in some ways that something wasn't working, that something was broken. And I might be a little bit of a Scorpio in that way, and that I was fully processing it on the inside in so many ways and not letting it out and telling people as much as I wanted to. And because I was afraid, and I still even am afraid with this podcast episode, if I'm really honest, that by being vulnerable, by being not perfect and that I wasn't succeeding in the way that everyone thought I would, it meant that people wouldn't want to work with me or that they shouldn't come to community events because if I'm not at my 100% in my business, then why should they? And I really had to get over that ego part of me a little bit and realize that I'm asking my community members to show up in this way. And so I need to show up in this way as well. And I think it's how we can all learn from each other. I really got to a point where I just felt like I was like an employee in my own company and not a CEO. I just like didn't have time to sit in the CEO moments. And I just was sitting in the like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And so finally, I honestly said, fuck it. And I burnt that baby to the ground. I just decided one day, 2 months ago, I ain't doing it anymore. I let one of my biggest clients completely go. I started not posting about that world anymore. And I just started telling people around me, hey, I don't do this anymore, and shifting and just really admitting it to my community, to my mastermind, to those that are close in my world. Like, guys, I don't think I want a done for you agency anymore. I don't think that's what I'm doing. I don't think it feels right anymore. And it's almost like I've felt weird showing up in all these spaces while I've been going through this because of like, I had the shift to let go of that identity. And I feel like I've fully let go of that identity for the most part. But what is taking time is finding my new identity and the new me and what she has. Because a lot of the time, I think we tie our identities to money, to success. As entrepreneurs, we definitely tie it to our businesses, right? We tie it to the stories we can tell, the way we show up. And I no longer had any of that to tie it to. I very much burned down to the ground what was making me so successful financially. I took a really hard hit the last 2 months financially to the point of going from 15K, 20K months, 25K month at one point last year to a $6,000 month this year. And some even a little bit lower, if I'm really honest, as I've tried to switch over. Because remembering that I haven't been able to grow Biz Bitch the way I wanted to, because I just didn't have the space to do it. And even in terms of bringing in the clients that felt aligned to what I want to do, I just didn't have the space to do it anymore because it just felt like everything was a mess and I was almost offering too much. I recently went through my own website and it's still a very much work in progress, but me and one of my trusty, Claude or ChatGPT, I just said, what do you get from looking at this compared to what we've been talking about lately? And they're like, essentially said, I would be confused with what you were doing too in terms of your own like nervous system. It's just, I had too many disconnected offers not coming through one ecosystem. I needed one ecosystem where everything could flow through and it would talk to each other. And it needed to be something that equally didn't just make sense on paper and strategy. Because look, that is one thing and I get it. But you can give me a strategy all day, but if I don't feel aligned to it, then that strategy ain't going nowhere. So I need to define what is my new identity. And so with that, my new identity is a community-led businesses in the strategy around it. I also don't know why I didn't lean more into being a projector in this and just realizing the signs were written all over the place. that just because I can be a good doer doesn't mean I need to be a doer. And I think this needs to be your sign too. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean that needs to be your business. You can build a business with other strategy and other ideas and find partners and be really good at something else, not just the thing you think you've always been good at. And it's okay to let go of something that you were good at for a while and you're still good at, but no longer aligned with. This new positioning as someone who is just leaning into community led businesses and memberships as a strategy and realizing that right now in a world of AI, it is more important than it ever has been. But it always actually has been around. I just don't think it's been leaned on as much. I have been working for years in a world of doing marketing activations, right? And doing different events where you activate the audience, doing different product offerings and sponsorships and partnerships at these big events where I used to work on the event side or the partnership side for these big agencies or a women's company. And I go get a brand. And the reason why the brand wanted to work with us is because we were the community and they wanted their brand in front of our community. And they didn't have the things they needed internally to activate people in person. Activating people in person and activating people online are very different things. And even connecting people in those activations to your brand and to each other are very different than just followers and likes. And I think we need to be very clear on that in this world. I realized that not only have I had sold out events and retreats in the last few years of my own business, I have been leading these spaces for over 15 years. I have ran 3-day expos and brought in big partners over multiple cities in another country. I have worked as a concierge in a 5-star hotel for many of years and worked alongside some really big leaders in different spaces. I have honestly curated some really cool experiences while I was working as a concierge to bring people together and build really unique experiences for them while they're on vacation. I realized that where I'm at now and the identity I'm stepping into now is actually this perfect blend of a bunch of things I've been doing my whole entire life that I've just been waiting for the moment for them to all come together. And I needed to really dial in on what that meant and realize, and this is a big one for me, that I am okay and I am safe in a space to just get paid for my strategy and my consulting and my experience without the doing. I have had this own block internally that unless I am doing, I don't deserve the money that I think I do. Unless I'm actually doing the changing, unless I'm actually typing, unless I'm actually in the back end of systems, if I'm not building out something that I don't deserve money for just my ideas and my experience. Which is also funny because I have had coaching clients, many of coaching clients over the last few years where I was really successful in those relationships and they have all gone on to their next steps of where they're at in their businesses. But it was always in the space of like systems and operations. I had this belief that I couldn't coach in the space of community and membership and events, even though that's probably the most experience I have on my resume, which is just wild when I'm saying it to you right now. So I recently realized my ecosystem and what I believe in and my philosophy is community. My philosophy is that community will always be part of businesses, especially as we lean more into a world of AI where AI is supporting us as community leaders and as business owners. There is a space and always will be a space of community inside of all different types of businesses. It's essentially kind of one of the foundations. And what I found to be so successful and what I have built and also all of my clients have built. And then when I look at some of the bigger brands just to start testing it, what they have built in, or if they didn't have it built in then, they are coming backwards and building it in now. I found my place for my philosophy and what I'm trying to build. I want to share a few things. My philosophy has honestly been in my blood since day one. I have not only built businesses around it with BizBitch, but I have worked inside companies like this my whole entire career. And it's what I've always been attracted to the most. It is a philosophy that to build businesses where people aren't just buying from them, people are feeling like they're a part of them. It is to build a community around what you're doing to make it easier for you when you're launching new offers and when you're launching new things. Because whatever it is that you put out, they feel like they belong. It is to build a community, not even necessarily around the founder, which is, I think, what a lot of businesses, especially online businesses and brands have gone around, is building around your personal brand, but your personal brand being your community personal brand. So allowing you to be able to step out of it one day. Because here's the thing, which I started to realize is, can these businesses where these personal brands are so attached to them operate without them? And how, even with BizBitch, can it operate without me? Does it still, without me doing something in the group chat, is the ecosystem still happening? And it is. And I think it's something so special. How do you get partnerships that feel aligned with what you're building? How do you get financial sponsorships with what you're building? And so that is the kind of the philosophy that I have known I've been so good at. I had to clean up my offer suite and think about how I was going to set this up. And that's what I'm really excited about right now, and where I'm like, want to put all of my time and energy. But once again, I am still a very much work in progress, to where now I can just talk about and scream from the rooftops my feelings and my beliefs, because it all ties back to either BizBitch or being a community-led consultant and membership. My podcast can talk about it. My events can talk about it. The retreats that I do, the membership, when I'm educating, speaking, partnerships that I do, brand. And it allows me to spread my wings so much further. And I will say, since I made the decision to do this, the amount of content ideas that comes to my head now is wild, like actually wild, friends. Like, I almost felt like I was broken for a little while when it came to content. How do I have nothing to say anymore? I always felt like I was going to confuse people, or I didn't know who it was talking to, and it didn't feel right in my world. But since I've given myself permission to lead into this new philosophy, and this being the world that I am leaning into, the content is flowing more than it ever has. I could talk for days, almost to the point where I don't have enough time to actually edit the content that I want to put out there in the world. And so I'm working on that as well. But like, the ideas are just coming to me so naturally, and things I could talk about. And it's tapping into things I've experienced 10 years ago, even to things that I'm experiencing now, and putting those stories together and be able to be a storyteller, because this is my identity. This is who I've meant to be and who I've always been. And it's allowed me to focus on one community and one mission and one company, versus feeling spread out amongst too many things and not being good at any of them. So if you've been feeling something similar, or you have gone through something similar, then some of the things that helped me that I wanted to share with you is, what do people actually come to me for? When people send me a DM, when people ask me through an email, or want to connect with me or go to coffee with me, what are they coming to me for? What is my legacy? What am I trying to build on, layered on? What are the things that I eventually want to launch one day and get out there in the world, because I'm a true entrepreneur and I have ideas? And how do they build on each other? And how does one support the next one? And I feel like I might have actually gotten that from Emma Grede, and the way her brands really do kind of build on each other, and the way that she's done Skims and Good American, is how do they tie to each other? Not that they always have to fully tie to each other, but for me, that just felt like where my alignment was right now. When people introduce me, how do they introduce me? What do they know you for? If someone described my brand in one sentence, what would I hope they say about me and what I do? This was a big one. What identity have I outgrown that might be attached to my old business? And what kind of CEO am I becoming? And what do I need to do to get there? There was a moment at the Oceanside retreat where our fireside chat and our keynote speaker, Dr. Kelly Aluhi, who is an incredible founder here in San Diego, we've recorded a podcast, it's coming. But she said something to me that really hit me, and I think it was what I needed to make the choice to make myself uncomfortable in order to grow. Was the moments where she's really gotten to that next stage and that next phase of who she is as an entrepreneur, is when she's made herself so uncomfortable she had no choice. And it's kind of how I felt. I was so comfortable financially and in those spaces, and yes, not attached, but it was like, I know it's going to be a lot of work to change this, and I don't think I want to do it, because like, that's a lot of work. I know what it was like to build where I've gotten to, and I don't want to do it. And like, also feeling like this need to like not be someone who jumps around in businesses or jumps around in careers. And that's something that's coming from me being younger, and in the most loving way, watching my mom jump different careers and never have success in like one area. And I always, for me, really wanted to be known for something and wanted to like stick it out until the end. And even growing up in sports and dance, like, I never was like a dancer, right? I was never a soccer player. I kind of jumped around and feel like I didn't have this one thing. And I've always said to myself, I want to have that one thing, and I want to take it to the point of just like so much success. And I realized that in order to be the CEO I want to be, I had to put myself in a really uncomfortable place and really deal with some uncomfortable feelings inside of myself, and put myself to a point of sink or swim again, to push myself to go work on what I needed to work on, because I wasn't going to do it when I felt too comfortable. And that was just me. So I hope some of those reflections can help you and support you if you can relate to anything we've been talking about today and where I've been feeling. And I am an open book if you have questions and want to talk through something, if it feels like you might be feeling that way. The crazy part is I know there's actually a lot of founders out there in the world right now that are feeling this. And the more that I've been open about having this conversation, others have come to me and said, I'm feeling the exact same way. I need to reposition and I've had to make myself really uncomfortable financially to get there. And I want to be in a space where we talk about this more often because it is how I'm growing and identity shifting to this next level. And realizing that it is time to do a few things. And these are some of the things I'm doing right now continuously as we talk through this and as this episode airs. So I am simplifying the absolute shit out of my offers. It's really, really simple offers to just regrow this and get this off the ground. I spent the last probably like 4 or 5 months cleaning up BizBitch to a really good place that it is a rinse and repeat system, which is also so important when you want to sell a company, right? I have been trying to make BizBitch something that could be sellable one day. And I know if I just start working on it now, eventually it'll get there. So I've been really simplifying that process in addition to simplifying my offers on my community led side and exactly what I do. Getting really comfortable talking about the exact same thing over and over and over again, which is marketing, and not feeling like they've already heard it again, because there's a million ways to say something simple and your audience doesn't see all of your content. They only see certain pieces. So saying it over and over again really does mean it finally gets into people's head. I've been eliminating misaligned opportunities. Like I said, I cut those clients out. They were no longer a good fit for me and I've kind of let them go. And I do have 1 or 2 clients now that feel really aligned. And I'm looking to bring on more in that space of one-on-one coaching in terms of strategy around community-led and memberships, also through some audit processes and then some VIP days as well. Making sure that I am building community and leaning into my community more than ever. If anything, I have just added a North County, San Diego offer into something that was San Diego. I'm also about to launch Bougie Bitch, which is something I have been secretly holding on to, which is my next tier for female founders. It's a social club for female founders that are $250K and up to 8-figure revenue. And it's something I know there's a gap in this industry and these women need, and I have just needed the space to give it to them. And I'm so excited. Working on education and, like I said, really around AI and leaning into how AI and community go together, and even the platforms that we use in community building and the way we use AI to support our businesses in community-led business, because it is different than others and you have to still be so human in this process for people to want to show up. In terms of the experiences I'm creating, Portugal immersion. We're taking 7 founders to Portugal in October with BizBitch. And I've already sold out 5 of those spots without even really marketing it anywhere. I've sent 1 email and it has been just a soft offer on the back end. And realizing that that is selling out and people are craving these kinds of experiences that are different than a business retreat, that is like business meets mindset meets travel, is something that I'm so wildly obsessed with, and also makes me feel like it's literally a match of all the things I've always done in my life. And just keeping looking at my long-term vision and what I'm trying to build to match that. I'm so excited about all of those things and really being able to dive in and help others understand what's in my mind, and reminding myself my experience and what I've done and what I've built is fucking amazing. Giving myself credit and its own kudos of just saying what I've built is really special. And it's something that I can help others build as well, because there's a lot of people who aren't good at this part of their business. They have other things they're good at, but this is not the part they're good at, but it's the part that I'm good at. I'm good at throwing events. I'm good at connecting people. I'm good at creating experiences. I'm great at making people feel like they have space in the room. I'm great at partnerships. I'm great at thinking about how a different event comes together to make people feel when they leave. I am great at partnerships. I am great at sponsorships. These are all things I'm really good at and I've always been good at, and it's okay to make money around them, and I should make money around them. It scares the shit out of me to say I'm no longer implementing, because that is what I've done. And look, I might poke around with some of my clients that I'm bringing in And like if they need something, look at it. But with the world of AI, I really want to be able to help my clients understand how to tell an AI agent to do what they need it to do more than the actual doing. That is really actually what I want to. I want to teach people how to tell AI to go do the builds that they need so they can go focus on building their communities and their memberships and the things that bring them joy in their business. But I'm still figuring out a lot, friends. And I've got a long ways to go. So I will keep you close to this journey. This is an invitation into the journey with me. And I appreciate you listening and hearing this part of it and just seeing me in this changeover. And if I've felt different, if something's felt different or you felt not aligned or something, even in terms of the biz bitch world, hasn't been perfect in your community, I appreciate you having patience with me during this change. It feels like this messy change that was so needed in order for me to get to this next phase of what I really want to build and the legacy I'm really wanting to leave behind. And please watch this space because you have no idea what I really, really want to build in this world of biz bitch, bougie bitch, these immersions and so on, and taking stages and creating other stages for other female founders is so what I'm passionate about. And now I have the space to be able to do that, and the space also for me to go be on stages. So if you're looking for someone to talk about community and memberships on your stage in your workshops and how to make this happen, I am your girl. There is a speaking website page on my website now, which is something I leaned into. And yeah, I'm so excited. So, some big takeaways that I hope you get from this is success can hide in misalignment. So, just because something is feeling successful and you're getting praise for it and everyone's telling you you're doing a great job and doesn't mean you should stop listening to yourself if something doesn't feel right. Revenue does really truly tell the truth of what is happening, but don't let it lie to you in the fact of just because you're making money doing something means you should keep doing it. And look, I'm sure there's lots of people who will tell me I'm absolutely insane for what I've done. It's the same. Some founders say, you shouldn't leave your full-time corporate job until you've made up the income of what you have. And I don't know, I'm a risk adverse entrepreneur, and this is how I've built this entire business. And it's what makes me want to work harder and get more invested. This is a really big one. I think every entrepreneur outgrows their first dream. And I think it's allowing us to outgrow that first dream and let it go before it's too late or before it's almost killed you or even your second dream. I think it's almost similar. It reminds me of hire slow, fire fast. And it's almost kind of the same thing. Like let it go for that next thing. Because if you don't let it go, if it's something that you're holding on to that hasn't given you that, like, in 3 to 5 years, that like projected success of a lot of money and people haven't really attached onto, including yourself, and you're not still seeing the numbers, then it might be time to pivot or just look at how your offers or look at what you're doing to get yourself to that step, not just hold on to it and, completely rinsing it, stretching it, and trying to pull everything you can out of it because you might actually be just on the bridge of what's next. Simplifying often feels like we're shrinking before it comes scaling. And I am reminding myself that every single day as I am doing my different tapping and my different meditations and journaling, because I feel like I have really pulled back on so many amazing things, but I just really needed to get clear and give myself space to understand what was next. And it's almost, I feel like I had to get rid of all the clutter in my life before I had a clear pathway to be creative and be me again. So with that, I don't have this fully figured out, to be honest, at all. And I want to give you the space to do the same in your businesses. But I do think, you should be passionate about what you're doing. And I also think there's businesses where you're not passionate, but at least you're making money. So I think like one or the other. But if you're not making money and you're not feeling passionate about it, then if you're a true entrepreneur, you go find the thing, right? I feel like ever since then, I'm like constantly thinking of new business ideas and new things. And I'm just keeping this ideas list of like different ways I could build and make money and not be so attached to that one idea that I had before. This is an episode where I told you I cracked the code and I had all the answers and a big strategy for you to go use. It's a episode where I was sharing my journey of where I'm at and where I'm going through, because I'm going to take you on the full journey of what this looks like, with some different episodes of watching it grow in this other way and watching my own numbers from today forward and how it's changing financially, but my KPIs and the engagement and who's booking and where the clients are feeling aligned, how many stages I'm getting put on once things feel more clear in my own ecosystem, in my own philosophy of what I'm speaking to and my own content. I'm going to leave you with a few last things for some journal questions, because I think this is really fun in addition to the questions I had earlier for you, because I just think they're helpful. So one question is, I'm going to leave you with one last question before we jump off. What part of your business are you still maintaining because it's what people expect of you and what people know you as? Because we think people expect something out of us, and that's why we keep showing up in that space, even though it doesn't feel aligned, or it's not going to work, or it's not part of your longer dream, to where if you just let that go, you might be able to get closer to your actual dream and your legacy sooner. So with that, friends, thank you for being part of another Biz Bitch episode. If you liked this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, leave a comment below if you can relate. Send me a DM. I love all of those things. If you are interested in one of my new offers, the website should be done in the next few weeks with some just really clear guidance on what I'm doing offer-wise. But send me a DM, because I can always send you the offers kind of on the backside. I just haven't put them out into the world as I'm really feeling into this new version of myself. If you think being a biz bitch is something you want to be, we have a virtual membership and in-person membership. If you're SoCal, we'd love to have you in person. If you're virtual, we'd love to have you online. It is an application-based membership, so you can go online to our website and apply, and our next open house will be this fall, and I can't wait to see you there. Bye, bitches.